Hello everyone, welcome back to iFashi and welcome to part 2 of this tutorial. We already posted the drafting on this beautiful corset top with this flounce spiral structure design. This part 2 video is to teach you how to stitch it all together to know how we made it. Here's the one we made on your screen, looking so beautiful on the inside and on the outside. In this part 2, I'm going to be taking you through how we stitched all the pieces together, how we made the spiral structure, and how we are going to drape the structure on top of the corset and then hand tack the whole thing together. Now, we've drafted already. If you haven't seen the video, the link will be in the description box. So here are the pattern papers that we drafted in the last tutorial. Here's the Mikado fabric that we used for this project. And here we have already cut on fabric. And like I said in the last video, when you're cutting on your fabric, remember to add your allowances, your sewing allowance to the edge of the pattern paper on your fabric. Because when we were drafting, we did not add sewing allowance. Like I did, as you can see on the center back, on the side back, the two side backs, we've added our allowance. And on the front, I mentioned it in the last video that this particular corset style has a boning channel on the front parts, which is why when we were drafting we added a 1-inch allowance on the center front. You know, usually when we're drafting and cutting our center front of fabric, we don't add allowance to that front side, but there's a stitch on this particular corset, so we added 1-inch seam allowance for the boning channel on that center front. So here are all of the pieces together. I've gone ahead to iron the S-stay to it and the lining as well. So the next step I'm going to take now is to start pinning them together so that you know how we are going to go to the sewing machine and join all of these pieces together. In order for you not to make mistakes when you're pinning together, make sure your pattern paper are close to you. They are close by. When you're getting confused, arrange your pattern paper on top and then you get it back. So pin down this 2 center front piece. After the center front piece, add the first side piece. We have 2 side pieces in this tutorial. So add the first side piece and the second side front piece. So by the time you're done with this, we'll go ahead and pin down the lining piece of the front before we pin down the back piece as well. So to pin down the lining piece of this front, I'm also arranging my pattern paper on top of it just to make sure I don't make any mistakes. In the drafting video, when we were drafting, I told you guys to always indicate using an arrow to know which part of your pattern paper is going left or which part is going right. That's so that you know which part will be joined together. So by the time you do that, when you arrange on your pattern paper, you have your feet accurately arranged before you start joining. After pinning down the front piece, the main fabric of the front piece and the lining of the front piece, I go ahead and pin down the main fabric of the back piece and the lining of the back piece as well. And I'll show you guys before I go to the sewing machine to start joining them together. Now for the back piece, this is what we have. As you can see on your screen, I've gone ahead to pin them down the way they should be. Remember to arrange your pattern paper on top just to be sure they were pinned down accordingly. Then here I'll go ahead and pin down the lining as well, and we'll be done with the pinning of these pieces. Here are all the pieces. We've pinned them together. We are going to go to the sewing machine now and join all of them together, and I'll be right back to show you guys. This is what it looks like after joining all of the pieces together. Here is the main fabric for the front piece and the main fabric for the back piece. We have 2 back pieces. And now these are the lining pieces for the front and the back as well. The next thing we're going to do now is to go ahead and iron them out because they are all looking rough, as you can see. So for us to iron, open out the seam, all of the seams that you just joined, open them out and give it a very good press. It's very necessary to iron all of your seams. Now this is what we have. Look at how neatly ironed it is. Iron your job very, very well. We have our lining pieces front and back, and we have our main fabric front and back. And when you're ironing the bust parts of your seams, ensure to use a bust ham so that you don't flatten the bust part of your top. Now this is the center front part. I told you we're going to be attaching a bone earlier. There are different methods of achieving a boning channel. You can wrap your bone around a fabric and stitch on top of your corset, as you see me wrapping on your screen. Then you can also stitch down this seam that you just ironed. When you stitch it down, you hide your bone behind it. I prefer this other method. I'll stitch down all of these pieces, all of these stitches I made, then automatically I have my boning channels. So I've gone ahead to stitch them down. I stitched only on the main fabric. Stitch on the part you're going to use to put your bone. If you are placing your bone on your lining, in some corset styles, the bonings go to the linings. But in some corset styles, the boning goes to the main fabric. In this one that we're making, this particular one, the bonings are on top of the main fabric. Take a good look at the style. So I created my boning channels on the main fabric only. After that, I go ahead and join the 2 sides together. Like join the back piece to the front piece on the sides. After joining, I'll go ahead and give it a very good press on that side. Remember, the side has a curvy shape. I also went ahead to double the stay on this side so that it will give it that standing effect. So on this waist part that is curved, endeavor to give it a notch. Notch it because of the curve at the end of the day, so you don't have a squeezy look on the outside. Give it a notch, open it out and give it a good press. After ironing out the side seams we just made, the next step is to join your lining to your main fabric on the neck line, all the way from the back to the front. Arrange it properly so that it will align. As you can see, I have equal lining and main fabric. But before we do this, we're going to attach our cup, our bra cup, to the lining pieces. To attach your bra cup to the lining pieces, you're going to place your cup on top of your lining, making sure that the space in the cup is facing the back of the lining, facing the wrong side of the lining, as you see on your screen. Make sure the space in the inner part of the cup is facing the wrong side of your lining pieces, so that when you put it on after stitching it on, you don't have the other side of your cup facing you. So I'll go ahead and pin it down now. Pin down the bra cup to my lining fabric. When you're pinning down, endeavor to look out for the under bust point. That's where the cup should start from. And then when you're pinning down, endeavor to leave some space, a 1-inch space on top of the cup, the neckline, so that you use it to join your main fabric to your lining. After joining, endeavor to top stitch and then iron. Parts. After turning the upper part and top stitching, here is what it looks like. My top stitch is looking very, very neat. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and iron. Let me share a hack with you. Sometimes when I'm turning this neck part using the lining to turn the main fabric, I add hemming gum while I'm joining it, so that when I flip it over and start ironing, it stays firmly. But this particular project, I did not add hemming gum. You can go ahead and add, it's fine. Now, after ironing out the neckline, this is the point where we start putting our bones inside the boning channel we created. So when you're putting your bone, endeavor not to let the bone reach the end of your fabric. Remember, you still need to leave a 1-inch allowance or half an inch allowance to stitch the down part of your top. Now we need to create a boning channel on this back piece where our eyelets are going to be placed. So to turn this back piece now, we're going to go ahead and make a straight stitch close to the edge, like a 0.5 inch straight stitch, and then you top stitch. After top stitching, make another stitch like to create a boning channel, another stitch like 0.5 inch, or depends on your boning size. Make another stitch that your bone can enter. Here's what I'm talking about. Look at what I did. I turned my own, the back and the front, I top stitched, and then I make another stitch where I'm putting this bone, as you can see on your screen. So we just created a boning channel for this back part where our eyelet will be fixed. And I've gone ahead to put all of the bones inside all of the channels we created on the fabric. The only part I put boning in the lining is this curve we have on the sides. Watch closely, you see what I did there. So now go ahead and push in all of the bones, and then I would cut out a plain fabric that I'll use to turn this hemline. Go ahead and arrange it properly, making sure the lining and the fabric, they are equally arranged. So now I'll use my measuring tape and measure what I have all around the hem of this top. As you can see on your screen, I have 48. So I'll go ahead and cut out a long, you can use bias or you can cut out a bias from your pieces, from your fabric. But I cut longer than I have. It's better, it's longer than it's not enough at the end of the day. So I cut up to about 50 something inches because I measured 48 inches. So I'll go to the sewing machine now, stitch these pieces to this top, right sides facing each other, and I'll flip it over and top stitch, and then close it on the lining part, and that will be all for this top. So when we finish with that, we'll go to the making of the structured sleeves. Here's what it looks like, guys. Look at how neat it is on the inside, on the upper part, the down part we just turned as well, and on the outside. We've put all of the bones in the channel and we've closed down the hem of this top. At this point, go ahead and give your top a very good press and fix your eyelet on this back side, and you're done. Now let's make the spiral structure design that we have at the front of this top. So here's the fabric I've cut out to make this spiral shape. As you can see on your screen, we have two different types of this spiral structure. The one on the down part has more of these bonings on the inside, and we are going to be doing the one on the upper part. The one on the upper part doesn't necessarily need plenty bonings and these fishing lines, because you just need it to fold so that you can make that structure. You don't need to put plenty bones. So let's go ahead and see how we make it. Some persons use normal beading fishing line to make this structure design, but there is a better one that people use now, which is this other bigger size. If you want to buy this boning, just tell them in the market that you want to buy the fishing line boning they use for spiral structure design. So they will give you this particular one. This is how it looks. Now here is the measurement of the fabric that I'll be using for this structure. The width is 29.5 inches and then the length is 56 inches, which is not up to 1 yard. You can go ahead and make your length longer. The width is wide enough for 30 inches, but for the length, make sure your own is longer than these 56 inches that I have. So what the first thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and fold these edges. When you're folding the edges, fold it in a way that we can insert this spiral boning. Fold it very tiny. The boning is not, the fishing line is not wide. It's not as wide as a bone, like the bone we use for corsets. So just fold it tiny so that you can insert it. Now let's start. So here's the fabric. I already told you guys the unfold is 14.5 inches. So I'm going to fold in this edge like I said earlier, fold it small, tiny. I'm folding it and putting the fishing line inside to see if it can enter. So I'll go ahead and fold one of the two edges, one side first, and I'll go ahead and fold the second side. We are not closing the upper part, we are closing the two sides of the length of the fabric we're using. We're closing the two sides. Now, after closing these two sides, we'll go ahead and check if your bone can enter. I'm putting my bone inside to see if it can enter. And when you're fixing your bone, as you can see, it entered. When you're fixing your bone, leave some space that you use to fold the under of the fabric. Now you see I took my measurements and it's not even up to half of an inch, which is like 0.25. So I'll go ahead and fold it in with 1 inch, as you can see me doing on the screen. Use your tape to measure 1 inch, and when you're folding, make sure it's the wrong side of the fabric you're folding out. So as you can see, I took 1 inch. I'll go ahead and make a stitch on this 1 inch. And as I'm making my stitch, I'm making that stitch on the wrong side of the fabric. I hope this is clear enough. So make that stitch. I'll take another 1 inch. I'll just be going like that. If you were making the tinier structure, I showed you there are two types of this structure. The one that is very common, it's very tiny. You don't take up to 1 inch space. You make them very close to each other. But like I said before, we just need these spiral bonings to hold down the edges and the middle of this fabric. You can go ahead and do this structure without adding this boning, but me, I just want something that will really hold it firm to coil it around for me. So as you can see, after making 2 to 3 stitches on the edge, I went straight to the middle of the fabric to make another 3 or 4 to 5 channels on this middle part, still following my 1 inch spacing. So I'll go ahead and create other channels in this middle part, and then I'll create channels on the side part, and I'll be done. Here's what it looks like, guys. I told you before, we're not doing a very close one. We don't want that close one. If you make it very close, it will not give you the result that we are looking for in this structure. It will give you the other one, the other spiral structure, the trendy one. This one is different. And now another thing to take note of, when you're putting your bone inside, make sure it doesn't get to the end, because when you are draping this design on the top, we're going to fold in some parts on the bust part before we start taking it backwards through the sleeve. So that part that we'll be folding on the bust part, do not let this bone get to that part so that it can fold very well. Now here's what we just did. I've gone ahead to close down the two sides. So the next thing I'll do now is to take it to I can't do the draping on the table. We have to go to the mannequin to drape. This is very, very simple. It's self-explanatory. You just fold it together like this, as you see me doing. Pin it down to the bust on your mannequin. Pin it down to the bust part. You just start rolling. I said it earlier, do not let your bone get to this part that you're going to roll, else it will be difficult for you to roll over. So now the boning starts after my rolling. That's what I did. I made some stitches to stop the boning there. So I'm just pinning it to the mannequin. If this was done on a human being, it would be different. There's a sleeve, there's a hand to hold the sleeve. So this mannequin does not have a hand, so I'm pinning down this sleeve part to the mannequin. That's why it looks like this. So just go ahead and pin and drape out that rosy look, give it that rose effect with your pins. And when you're satisfied with what you have pinned, the next thing is to go ahead and hand tack it. After you have pinned it and you are okay with what you pinned, if you're not okay, go ahead and do it, try it again. So for this back part, I'm going to match it down. I will not use sewing machine to match it down. I'll still use my needle and thread to tack it, because I want this sleeve to be detachable. It's not every time I'll be putting this sleeve. So this is the needle and the thread. I'll go ahead now, tack it all these parts are held down with pin. I'll go ahead and tack it and then tack the back, and you will have something like this. You know, it can't be like this on my mannequin because there's no sleeve, there's no hand on the mannequin. So when you tack it and drape it very well, this is what you are going to have. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and I'll see you in my next one.